To borrow a line from William Shakespeare, what's in a name? I mean, how important is the name associated with your car? Obviously, no one wants to drive around in a car called a crumple or a kaput, but how important is that badge on the back? I ask this because this may look like a Volkswagen Tiguan. It is actually the brand new Volkswagen Tayron. Now, in essence, this replaces the old Tiguan Allspace, but does so with a different name. It's exactly the same concept. It's a 7-seat version of the Tiguan. So, does this live up to the expectations that we have of a Volkswagen, regardless of its name? So, does it drive like a Volkswagen? Does it perform like a Volkswagen? Does it live up to that standard we expect from the brand? Well, let's find out. Volkswagen has carved itself out a special place in the market between the mainstream brands like Toyota and the true luxury options like BMW. This semi-premium position has allowed it to creep up in terms of price over the years. However, as the Australian new car market gets increasingly more and more competitive, Volkswagen Australia knows it cannot price itself out of reach of the typical family buyer that would look for a Tayron. That's why the entry-level 110 TSI Life starts below $50,000, and both the 5-seater 150 TSI Life and the 7-seat 150 TSI Elegance come in at under $60K. It's only the flagship 195 TSI R-Line that blows past $70,000 and pushes back into that true semi-premium part of the market. The decision to have the Tayron priced around the 50 to 60K mark is no accident. Volkswagen Australia knows that that is the price range many of its buyers prefer to shop in, so they've met them where they are. If you want more details on the specifications of the Tayron range, make sure you read my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au. Obviously, it's a risk for Volkswagen to move away from the Tiguan name because it was so ingrained in the lineup alongside the likes of the Golf and the Touareg. But there is still a clear resemblance between the Tiguan and the Tayron because, frankly, there's very similar cars. Almost from here, we're talking very, very similar. But below, they have given it a unique front end to try and, I guess, visually separate the two. But there is no question there is a strong family resemblance between the Tiguan and the Tayron from a design perspective. Of course, the other big change is it is longer. You get a longer wheelbase stretched out so you can create that space in the back where you get obviously more boot room and space for 2 extra passengers. So overall, even though it has got that dramatically different name, there is still that very, very strong connection between the Tiguan and the Tayron. In terms of interior design, it's a similar story to the outside. It's very much a Tiguan inside, but again, well, thankfully they have put a little Tayron name on the dashboard so you do know which car you're in. But again, that's not a bad thing. There's no criticism of it. It's a really nice interior in a lot of ways. You've got this massive 15-inch screen. It's a very minimalist look. They have kept the physical buttons to a minimum, which is not everyone's cup of tea, I'll be honest. But overall, it's the sort of polished, clean presentation that you expect from Volkswagen. In terms of practicality though, again, the screen is great. It's really big. It's probably right at the limit of how big a screen should be in a car. It's like, I mean, it is frankly bigger than a tablet. It's borderline like you've got a laptop screen there. So it does stay out of your way, which is fine. I personally would love a few more physical buttons to make the integration and the usability a bit better. One thing I do love is this section down here. You've got space for not 1 but 2 smartphone chargers, and it comes with sort of a bit of a lid or another shelf that runs on top of it. Again, this is straight out of the Tiguan, but it's a really brilliant, handy, clever feature. And so, from a practicality point of view, I think they've really nailed it. And then again, the space in this front row is good for, it's got that again, that very much it's a feels like a roomy car. It's obviously, it doesn't, from this point forward, it feels very much like a Tiguan, but overall, again, it ticks that box that of being a little bit above average is what you expect from Volkswagen. The biggest difference though between the Tiguan and the Tayron starts right here. The back seat, we got a 2nd row and a 3rd row. So how do they compare? Well, look, this is roughly my seating position. Now, I've got the seat here. It's a slide-in 2nd row, so you can move it backwards and forwards. I've got plenty of space. I could actually probably move a little bit further forward. You know, my knees are up against it then. But generally speaking, it's, you know, a generous amount of room for the second row in an SUV of this size. As for the third row though, well, I'm not back there for a reason. Like I say, I'm about 6 foot tall, and those seats are not designed for a human adult, certainly not one my size. They are a little bit tight, and frankly, that's one of the big differences. The Tiguan Allspace was always kind of promoted as a 5+2, as in it was a 5-seater with those 2 extra seats for when you need them. And in some ways, that's what the Tayron still very much is a 5+2. I wouldn't put it in a true 7-seat category in terms of if you need to use 7 seats, 6 or 7 seats on a regular basis, this is probably too small for you. So, you know, but for those families who do want, you know, space for 4 or 5, but occasionally need to take friends or other relatives in, you know, you can squeeze kids in the back, then it does a pretty good job of offering, you know, decent room for smaller people in the third row. Obviously, one of the biggest selling points of the Tayron is its practicality, not only in terms of carrying people, but also carrying your cargo. In that sense, it's an interesting one. With the third row up, you only have about 345 litres, which is fine. You know, you're not going to get, you know, a family's worth of shopping in 345 litres. But if you only need these 7 seats on occasion, well, then you can expand it up to 850 litres, which is a big old generous boot there. So in that sense, again, if it's a 5+2 that you need, this does tick the box very well from a practicality standpoint. There are 3 powertrain choices for the arrival of the Tayron, but the company has also confirmed that 2 plug-in hybrid variants are coming in 2026. For now, it's an all-petrol powered lineup. The 110 TSI Life is powered by a 110 kilowatt, 250 Newton meter, 1.4 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine, and this is paired to a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission that sends all of its performance via the front wheels only. The 150 TSI gets a bigger 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, making, you guessed it, 150 kilowatts of power and 320 Newton meters. It also has a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, but it adds all-wheel drive. Finally, there's the 195 TSI R-Line, which VW claims offers, quote, GTI levels of performance, end quote, so it gets a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder unit pumping out, again, you guessed it, 195 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters. Again, this is mated to a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission and gets an all-wheel drive system. Now, going with a lineup of all turbocharged petrol engines means that the Tayron isn't the most efficient SUV in its segment, but the addition of the e-hybrid PHEVs next year will change that. What you need to know is that the 110 TSI uses 7.6 litres per 100 Ks, the 150 TSI has a 7.7 litres per 100 Ks claim, and the 195 TSI is unsurprisingly the thirstiest at 8.6 litres per 100 Ks. Now, those are all relatively high when you compare them to key rivals, such as the Hyundai Santa Fe Hybrid, which uses just 5.6 litres per 100 Ks, which is the same as the Toyota Kluger Hybrid. And both of those are conventional hybrid systems. The saving grace for VW is that the non-hybrid Santa Fe and Kluger use 9.3 and 8.5 litres per 100 K respectively, so it makes the Tayron look better. But until the Tayron plug-in hybrids arrive, VW is at a disadvantage in this department. One thing Volkswagen really prides itself on is its driving dynamics, and certainly that is a selling point for a lot of people. The fact that these cars do have sort of, I guess, an elevated driving experience in the sense that, you know, as the driver, you can enjoy, whatever road you're on, because they tend to be a bit more responsive and a bit more, you know, basically fun to drive. Not necessarily more comfortable, but more fun to drive. And that is certainly the case with the Tayron. It's, for a family-friendly, what is a family-friendly SUV, it is really enjoyable to drive. It has really good response. It has, performance. I'm driving the 150 TSI, so not even the most powerful. There is the 195 TSI that has, according to Volkswagen, GTI levels of performance, which is exciting. But, for an everyday, family-friendly, 5+2 SUV, this thing is genuinely enjoyable. The steering is very responsive. The chassis feels very responsive. Like, you know, we've driven through some windy roads, and honestly, it's enjoyable. It's you know, okay, it's not a Golf GTI, but it's good. You know, it's certainly not a big, boring, you know, blah kind of SUV. It's fun. You'll have fun enjoying this car. That does come at the expense, like I say, Volkswagen is, you know, they're not renowned for their comfortable, compliant SUVs, and certainly from that point of view, like I say, we're on these roads, you know, a few hours south of Sydney, more rural roads, but obviously you get them in any urban environment, you'll get potholes and bumps and things, and frankly, you do get, you know, you notice the bumps more. It can be a bit of a firmer, a bit busier. Certainly wouldn't call it uncomfortable by any stretch, but it is just that little bit busier. And it has exposed one really strange experience in the Tayron for me, and that is there are some noticeable rattles. That is most definitely not something Volkswagen is known for. Volkswagen has a reputation, you know, frankly, I was a Volkswagen owner in a previous life, and they have, frankly, have had exceptional build quality. And so to hear sort of rattles from the door and a few rattles from around the larger screen in some of the cars is really, frankly, surprising. And you know, it certainly makes me question whether that's something specific to this new generation model, or maybe an anomaly with these particular cars we've driven. I'm not sure, but it's something I think we certainly will keep an eye on as we drive future Volkswagens, and just make sure that they are up to that standard that we do know and that Volkswagen has typically lived up to. In terms of safety, look, it ticks the boxes that you expect. It's got a 5-star Euro NCAP rating. It should get a 5-star NCAP rating. It has all the bells and whistles and the radars and the cameras, and it's got all that good stuff. But what's worth mentioning is the fact that it has things like speed limit warning, it has speed limit sign recognition, which has been quite accurate, and it has driver attention monitoring. And you will have noticed watching this video, or certainly when you'll watch the bloopers at some point, I'm not swearing and carrying on because the car is beeping at me constantly. I think the driver attention system in this car is particularly well calibrated, one of the better ones I've experienced. So kudos to Volkswagen, and it shows that those systems can be done well. And so when they are done well, and we as motorists, I'm sure you've watched plenty of reviews on CarsGuide with us complaining about them beeping and bonging and annoying to the point of needing to turn them off, this does show that you can set those systems up properly, and when you do, they do serve the purpose that they are intended for. And so I think it's a lesson. This is a lesson for everyone in the industry who is not doing a good enough job with those systems to up their game. As for its ownership and servicing, the Tayron is covered by Volkswagen's usual 5 years unlimited K warranty. While that's not bad per se, it's also not particularly outstanding given the growing number of 7 and 10 year coverages. As for the servicing, the Tayron requires a checkup every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, whichever comes first. VW Australia offers either 3 or 5 year care plans, which save you money compared to the pay-as-you-go offer. These plans range from $1,595 for the 110 TSI for a 3-year period, and go all the way up to $3,550 for the 150 and 195 TSI models for 5 years of coverage, but with potential savings of more than $500 in the long run. So what's the verdict on Volkswagen's new take on the 7-seat SUV? Is the Tayron set to become as memorable and as beloved as the Tiguan already is? To be blunt, it doesn't really matter what the badge on the back is, more than the one on the front. Tiguan Allspace or Tayron, call it what you will, as long as, at its core, it lives up to the Volkswagen attributes that buyers expect. And the Tayron definitely does that. This new 7-seat SUV is a very welcome addition not only to Volkswagen's lineup, but to the entire family SUV segment. Competitively priced, enjoyable to drive, and very practical, the Tayron has a lot to offer for those in the market for family-friendly transport. Now, if you want to know more about the Volkswagen Tayron, make sure you read my in-depth written review at carsguide.com.au.